Welcome to our eXp Milnet Alaska's first webinar in our attempt to better educate our real estate professionals on the VA home loan and working with veterans and military personnel so that you become the choice for them to serve them in their real estate needs. So today we have Jason Steyer from the Benchmark Mortgage in Texas. He is known on social media as the VA boss. He is literally, and I'm not exaggerating, literally the smartest guy I know on the VA home loan. He's become more than a loan officer to me. He's become a resource. So when I have a puzzle I have to put together on a VA loan, or I have challenges and I can't figure out how to crack the nut, he's the guy I reach out to get me the answers to figure out how to get there from here. And he's come through for me more times than anyone else that I've asked on the really, really hard questions. So he's an encyclopedia of knowledge on the VA home loan. So we're really happy to have him here to help us with improving our knowledge on the VA home loan and serving military and veterans. Since, Alaska doesn't have, we talk about this a lot, doesn't have the most veterans of every state in the lower 48, but it has the highest veteran population per capita. So you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a veteran in Alaska, right? So you're going to run into them, you're going to work with them. And the more you know, the better prepared you are, the more likely you're going to be that go-to agent to represent your military and veteran community. So without further ado, Jason, take it away with the VA Bootcamp.
Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to share my screen here. So I've got some things we're going to kind of work through here. I do have the chat box pulled up as well. Somewhere. There it is. All right. So, as Steve said, what I'm going to go through with you today. So let's talk about what it is, right? So what it is some details that you're going to run into in your daily life. Conversations you're going to have with listing agents, conversations you're going to have with other veterans, with military. And the one key factor in all this is education, right? That's why we're here today. That's why you're here. But education is ongoing. Even somebody that deals with this as much as I deal with it, I still have to educate myself. I think when we stop doing that, we start doing them a disservice, because education is agnostic, in my opinion. I don't care who you work for, what company, if it's a loan or if it's realtor or whatever it is. Education is what separates us, the good from the great, in my opinion. And that's why you're here today. And that's why I want to record this, because we can start, providing you with resources, much like not just things that come out of my mouth, but resources for you. And I'll talk about a little bit about that here in just a little bit. But so let's talk about what this is not. What this is not is a magic pill. Right? What this is not is a magic pill that will cure getting your offers accepted. What this is not is the VA has no down payment. The VA has no PMI. We are past that, right? I think you can go to va.gov and read everything you need to know about the VA home loan benefit as far as that goes. Some of the technical aspects. What we're going to dig into is some of those deeper things that you're going to encounter. So Jennifer said her chat is disabled. Okay, so I've got the Q&A box pulled up. So if you want to type something, just type it into that Q&A box. If you guys have answers or questions or anything like that as we go along. And if we can get the chat up, that's fine. But if not, we got the Q&A section. We can go through there. I believe. Yeah. Okay. So this is my vision. This is the vision I adopted a long time ago in my business. I've been in the business about close to 21 years. I always describe it as serving a 20-year sentence. Some people think I'm crazy, but I love it. And this is what kept me in it. 99% of my business is military veteran. I'm licensed in 21 states. So I help a lot of people all over the country see a lot of different perspectives in a lot of different environments. Steve and I have tried to chat with him about local things in Alaska, because what's Alaska is not what's Texas. So I want to make sure that I'm providing value to you where you live, right? Not just some of the X's and O's of the VA home loan. But there's something that that I heard the other day, and this is something that I read, and I believe this in my core, is that education is not grounded in the truth, it's worthless. There are so many things in our world that are now done under the guise of marketing, right? That are perceived truth. Okay. And what you're going to find in this business is there's a lot of that out there, like Google. Okay. Google used to be for informational purposes. Now it's meant to sell you something. That's it. It's sales. So when veterans or military go to Google, they are basically put into someone's sales funnel. That's just the way it is. And so we have to know that, right? So this is why it's so important that we, as the people who are in our communities, are spreading this message in our communities. Because if we stop, they're going to go to Google. They're probably going to go anyway, but at least we're going to have a chance to combat some of the things that they deal with. Okay. This is the picture of what I picture of listing agents. I say this in jest, but it's kind of what I see. And I actually talked to one this morning in Charlotte, North Carolina. For a friend of mine who just retired out of the military, out of the Army. His wife's retired Army. He got a job in Charlotte, which is a very hot, market right now. And I talked to her for at least 45 minutes. And talking about all the things that she had heartburn over about this offer. This guy's got 780 credit scores, a couple $100,000 in the bank, everything. Well, why can't he go conventional? Well, because he doesn't have to. I mean, it's that simple, right? And so one of the things that we look at, I'm going to slide past this one. That's the number of VA loans that's done just in the Anchorage area. But so Jason is his name. Jason's a good friend of mine. I met him through the Honor Foundation. We did a survey through the Honor Foundation about 6 months ago. And this ought to tell you, guys like him, who spent 28 years in the Army, he worked in the unit, and he will tell you that going to combat is way easier than transitioning into civilian life. And that to me is a telltale, honestly pathetic thing for us. I'm a civilian. Okay. I didn't serve. So as a civilian, I hear that and I'm like, okay, so how can we help you? Right? How can we make it better that you'd rather go have bullets whiz past your head than come home? Well, part of that is what we do here, right? Part of that is what Steve does and what you guys do in your communities to make them feel welcome. I mean, that's the way I see it. And owning a home to them should be a place and something that is honorable for them, and they can, protect their families and they can build their castle, so to speak. But 90% of them think it's easier to go to combat. So for me, that gives me fuel to do things in this community and across the states that I service, spending time with Steve and his wife and flying to Alaska and meeting people face to face. That's how important this message is to me and to Steve. And that's why he and I align with this. So one of the things that we always talk about is who you work with matters, your partners in this business. And we'll kind of hit on some of these touch points as we go through this presentation, but who you work with matters. We're not all built the same. We're not, your title partners, your lenders, your everything. We're not all the same. And I am not built for FHA people. I'm not built for first-time home buyers. My process is not built for that. And I'm okay with that. Because my mission is to serve the veteran in the military community. We do a lot of, we are the Benchmark as a whole, as a company, is number 29 in the country out of the 50,000 VA approved lenders in VA purchase volume. 29. And we're not very big. We're a boutique type company, but we have spent many man hours training our loan officers in the cities they serve to champion this VA message, because it's that important to us. Because you got to position yourself as the go-to in your community, like Steve alluded to. I like to call it making yourself locally famous, not Kardashian famous, right? But just locally famous. Nobody wants to be them anyway. But we have the opportunity to do that. And I think your partners can help you do that, right? In the military, it's called a force multiplier. I have people that work with me that make me as good as I am at what I do. I don't do everything by myself. Okay, so just, you might, self-assessment's a very powerful tool. I self-assess my partners all the time, and I like to work around people who hold the same values that I hold and are on the same mission. Doesn't mean anybody else is not bad. It's just the way it is. Okay. So here's 3 questions that I would honestly ask you to put into your buyer consults, and we'll talk about why, hit some high points on some of these. Not every veteran walks around with a sign that says, I am a veteran, right? My dad's a Vietnam veteran. He has a Vietnam veteran hat he wears literally every day. But there are veterans who are out there who don't tell you they're a veteran. Some of them, honestly, shockingly enough to me, they're ashamed of their service. Well, I never deployed to a combat zone. I was an ad. Who cares? Right? We don't care, but they do. That's part of the culture that is some of their community at some point. And that's so we got to uncover things. And so asking these questions can set you up for success. But asking, did you or your spouse serve in the military, is a very basic question to me. And the reason why is because you can uncover potential surviving spouse benefits. If someone's spouse was either killed in combat or passed as a result of a service-connected disability, that spouse may be entitled to their benefits. But if we don't know, if we don't ask, we're never gonna know. And so I had a client a few years back that was an older lady, and she was buying a house, doing conventional 20% down, everything, normal. And I asked her this question during my buyer consult, and she said, no, my husband served, I didn't. And I'm like, well, is he not going on the loan with you? Well, he passed several years ago. She had no idea that she might be entitled to his surviving spouse benefits. So we ask questions. Some of them are kind of uncomfortable because you have to ask some probing questions about health and death and all that thing. And that's weird for people, but it's necessary. So we uncovered the fact that she was eligible. So I helped her fill out all the paperwork to get dependent indemnity compensation, which is $1,256 a month, tax-free, literally for the rest of her life. It does not expire. And we were able to get her approved and get her certificate of eligibility as a surviving spouse. She was able to save her 20% and make the offer as a VA loan. And we saved her money and we made her money. So it was a win-win for everybody. And just from an emotional standpoint, she was so thankful for me that she gave my son, who was about 6 at the time, her husband's train sets, like electronic train sets. She was so thankful for us helping her. And so there's the emotional bond that you're going to build. And I can only be sympathetic. Obviously, Steve is a vet, some of you may be too. And if you're not, we can only build a sympathetic emotional response. I cannot create empathy because I didn't serve. But at the end of the day, we're all human, right? We all have the ability to sympathize and build relationships. Okay. Receiving VA disability, obviously being exempt from the funding fee. Steve, does Alaska have property tax benefits for disabled veterans?
They do, and it really depends on which, I'll call it a county for lack of a better word, where you live.
Okay.
So in the Mat-Su borough, the property tax benefit, I want to say is different than it is in the municipality, Anchorage municipality. But you can, generally speaking, you can write off $150,000 a year of your property tax, your assessed value.
Okay. So to that point, think about having that conversation with that veteran that may have a disability, and possibly helping with that, because I can assure you this, they probably don't know. And that's just a fact, right? I mean, there's a lot of veterans in Texas. We have 1.8 million veterans in the state of Texas. And I guarantee you that 8 out of 10 have no idea what the property tax exemptions are. And I guarantee you that 8 to 9 out of 10 agents don't explain it to them. It's just, it doesn't dawn on us. And so it's a little bit going deeper. That's what I call it. You got to go deeper with them. I think it builds that bond, builds that, saving people money is always a good thing. Okay. And then having your certificate, you would think that that would be a standard in the mortgage business, but I'm here to tell y'all, it's not. LOs will not pull their certificate until they get to the processing phase. They will issue a pre-approval letter with no certificate eligibility. That's crazy. Crazy to me, because you don't even know if they're eligible for the benefit unless you pull it. So you're going to issue a pre-approval letter, have them go out and shop for a house, go under contract, send the loan into processing, and then your processor pulls it. I mean, if that's not setting somebody up for failure, I don't know what it is. Just don't know. And I never do that. Our process is such a way where we do it as soon as Jillian, who's my loan partner, who happens to be a military spouse, and my sister-in-law, so she knows where she knows where all my dead bodies are buried. She does it when the application is sent. Okay, that is not done at the processing phase. Okay, so when we issue a pre-approval letter, all of those things have been checked. All of it: income, credit, assets, COE, all of it. But what it also uncovers is that maybe they had a foreclosure, maybe they had a short sale, maybe they have entitlement tied up. All of those things, we do those calculations to set them up for success in their transaction and set you up for success too. Okay, so it's vitally important. So asking that question, and one thing I will note that the VA at some point, I don't know when, but it's going to be in the near future, the VA is going to stop allowing veterans to pull their own COE through e-benefits, because it is a document for us only in the mortgage world, and we should be pulling it. The responsibility should be us. Okay. And the reason being is that there's reservists and National Guard people out there who will try to pull it, and they won't be able to get it because they don't know what paperwork to upload to get it. We should. Now, it doesn't mean we do a lot of times, but we should know that. Okay. All right, so let's talk about some common myths. And some of these common myths, I think, are universal no matter where you live. I do not care if you live around a military installation. I still hear these things. I like to talk strategy. I like to talk about scripting. I think scripting is a lost art, in my opinion. I actually just shot a video series with my good friend TJ Courtney, who's retired Air Force, who, in my opinion, is one of the best off-the-cuff scripters when it comes to this type of thing that I've ever dealt with in my 20 plus years in this business. He's amazing. And when we shot these videos, we did them. I didn't tell him what I was going to throw at him. There was no preparation. It was 100% off the cuff. And I think that allows us to respond naturally. And one of the things that we get, I just had this conversation this morning, does down payment really matter? Because what you'll get is from a listing agent, it's not so much the seller, because I think the seller will mimic the listing agent, but what they'll get is a down payment would make my seller feel better. I've heard that 1,000 times. I literally heard it this morning talking to these people in Charlotte. And my only response to that is why? Why? Why would it make your seller feel better? And typically, they don't really have an answer. It's just, well, it just make them feel better. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about this logically. Do they get the down payment if the buyer defaults? Nope, they don't. Is it earnest money? No, it's down payment. Okay, so my thing, especially in this, if I've got veterans with money like my friend Jason, who has, quite a bit of money saved in the bank and in investments, why should he have to take out the money out of his investment that's drawing him 7 to 8% return to put down on a house to make your seller feel better? That's a bad financial decision. So that's what I typically respond with. there's the emotional response, and then there's the business response, right? The emotional response to me is, look, you guys earned the right to this benefit by serving your country. It's an earned benefit. You have the right to use it. So your service trumps your seller's feelings. That's the way I see it. You know, they use the skin in the game verbiage, which will seriously shoot me to the roof. Because I've had friends that did not come back from combat. I've had friends that would come back with less limbs than they started with. That's their down payment. That's the way I see it. If we're going to talk emotions, let's talk about all of it. So, okay. So these are some stats that I'm going to share with you. These are important. Stats to me are kind of agnostic, right? They don't have any emotion to them. But people talk about VA loans not closing or not closing on time. And I'm not discounting their experiences, but the stats are the stats. These are national stats. I did not make these up. This is the closing ratio between VA loans and conventional loans from Ellie Mae. And as you can see, 0.3% is negligible at best. Okay, so they close at the same rate. So that argument's off the table, right? We're going to remove that. Okay. And then, you know, we get into the underwriting piece. I think this is where your lender and who you choose to do business with shines. Okay, because we're not all built the same. We all have different overlays on the VA home loan. The VA home loan in its purest form is the greatest home loan in existence. Because there's a lot of gray area, right? I always describe it to people as it lives in the gray. FHA looks like a phone book. The guidelines are this thick, literally. VA handbook is 12 chapters and only about 1 to maybe 3 chapters apply to us. The rest of it's about loan guarantee and things like that. It's that simple. Okay, but people will put FHA guidelines on VA loans because there's an absence of a rule. So they say, oh, we'll just use the FHA guideline. Well, what that does is puts your veteran buyer at a disadvantage. Again, that's my opinion. Okay. But here's some of the things that I want you to focus on. These are the most common ones that I come across. You know, VA loan having a max loan amount. You know, everybody knows that Tidewater removed the max loan amount for veterans with full entitlement. Okay, people will still put loan limits on it. FICO scores. Okay, hope everybody knows by now that the VA has no FICO minimum at all, right? It's nothing, zero. Lenders, everybody, including mine, put an overlay on that, a credit score overlay, but lenders will use the term the VA requires a 620 or the VA requires a 620 or 10 or 100 or whatever it is. And what it does is it turns that veteran buyer from going somewhere else to try to find the help that they can get. So keep that in mind when you're vetting VA LOs. Our company goes down to 580. We'll even do them lower than that on a case-by-case basis because we're going to hold that loan and we service our VA loans anyway. Okay. But that's a commitment that our owner of our company has made. If we're going to do that. Okay. Bankruptcy, they'll put Fannie Mae rules on bankruptcy seasoning, which is 4 years. VA is 2. That's what they want. They want 4 years for whatever reason. Property types. So I would assume that being that Alaska probably has some unique property types. State of Texas, we like to live in barn dominiums here. We like to live in barns. We like to live in A-frames and metal homes and dome homes and all kinds of things. Okay. So manufactured houses, so mobile homes. Some lenders won't do them. Now the VA has no restriction on those property types, but you're going to get told that the VA will not allow an A-frame or a barn dome or, you know, a mobile home. Totally, it's just not true. And so you have to make sure that you're asking the right questions. So hopefully you guys are taking notes to ask those questions of people that you may not know, like a buyer that comes with a lender that they already chose. Look, again, lots of internet lenders out there that are paying a lot of money to grab people. Okay, so that's what you're going to get. And the other thing, one of the most important, especially for people, you know, in Alaska, because a lot of service members stay in Alaska when they separate. Steve did. Right? So, or wherever else, where you're, people that are separating from the military that are being medically retired, they're just EASing, sometimes it's a punitive separation. The rules for them are different than somebody that's on active duty or a veteran, because their income may not continue for 12 months. So you have to be very, very, very careful. In some lenders, they won't accept the DoD retirement calculator or the high 3 calculator to prove their retirement income 8 months before they retire. The VA doesn't care. As long as you're documenting it and you can prove it, you're good. They will accept that calculator. A lot of lenders won't. And that's their prerogative. I'm not throwing, I'm not poo-pooing on them. That's just the way it is. So, but again, this goes back to partnerships, right? We're not all built the same. And so a very important one, especially in this day and age, with a lot of institutional investors out there buying real estate, or just investors in general, is that the VA has no flip rule at all. It's not like FHA where you have to wait 90 days and possibly do a second appraisal. There is no flip rule on a VA loan. The investor can buy it, flip it, put it on the market the next day, and a VA buyer can buy it unless they don't even really take into consideration what the investor bought it for versus what they're selling it for, as long as the market value holds that. They don't even care. But people will tell you all those things because they put FHA guidelines on VA loans. Okay, there is probably a list as long as my leg that we could go through. These are some of the top ones. But my coach to you is to ask better questions of lenders, especially that you do not know. Okay, ask them how many VA loans they close a year. The average loan officer in the United States, because there's a lot of us out there, closes six a year. You can't be good at anything doing it 6 times a year. If that's the case, I'm a fitness expert, right? Because that's about how many times Jason works out of the year. And I'm not good at it. So my point is that there are people out there who truly specialize in this. That's become a nice little marketing tag these days. We close anywhere between 185 to 225 VA purchase loans a year, just me and my team. And I'm not even an expert. I hate that word. But Steve knows that even if it's not my deal, if it's questionable, if it's questions, if it's this just procedurally doesn't sound right, all you got to do is call me, shoot me a Facebook message, whatever, follow me on Facebook. I'll get you what you need. Okay, very easy. All right. So this is data that I track on my internal. This is a national average, is about 52 days, which to me is just crazy with today's technology. This is my average day from contract to close is 24 days. My standard on my team is that I want the loan processed from outside of title and appraisal in 7 days or less. That's my standard. And we do it 96% of the time. I think asking questions of lenders or your partners, ask them questions like this. This is business owner questions. If I don't know my numbers as a business owner, I'm not really a business. Because I can train anybody to take a loan out. Literally. You have to know your numbers and work on your process constantly. And we are constantly having meetings with my team, with Jillian and Laura, saying, hey, what can we improve here? Let's look back at the last week or two. Is there any problems we faced? How could we have done that? That's what you're supposed to do, especially for people in the military, because they may be going on a temporary duty assignment before they get to you. Or they may be in temporary lodging. Well, as we know, temporary lodging sucks and the government only pays for it for so long. You keep them in TLF because of your inefficiencies in your process. It's not a good thing. Okay, so just keep in mind that that 99% of all lenders in the country have what's called automatic authority. They don't have to go to the VA to close anything. The only thing that has to go to the VA are joint loans. So veteran, non-veteran. That's a joint loan. That has to go to the VA to be underwritten. but you can still do it. It just requires a down payment. Okay, dual veteran, splitting entitlement, not married, is no longer a joint loan. We can close that automatic. I'm doing one right now. Okay, so people will tell you that you can't do those certain things. But as Steve said in the very beginning, resources. I believe that resources is what separates the good from the great. Okay, and you're gonna have these resources now. All right. So talking about fees, one of the pushbacks that we get is that because it's a VA loan, the seller has to pay for fees on behalf of the veteran, and that is absolutely not true. Okay. The only time that those non-allowable charges that are listed in chapter 8, you can go to chapter 8 and see all of them, is if the lender is charging 1% in origination. Okay, either in a collective method, so like underwriting, admin, processing, or in a flat fee of 1%. There are lenders out there that charge 1% as a standard. Veterans United is one of them. USA used to be, they do on some deals now, but that triggers the non-allowables. Okay, so put yourself in the listing agent's shoes for a second. If they take an offer, it's VA, and that lender is charging 1%, and as a listing agent, they haven't accounted for that. Typically, the title company is going to put those non-allowable fees on the seller's side of the CD. That's just default. But nowhere in the handbook does it say the seller has to pay for those fees. It just means the veteran cannot. My opinion is if a lender's charging 1%, they need to pay for it because they're making enough to cover whatever the non-allowable is. And you should ask every time. Okay, because they're making money on the rate and they're making money in those fees. Just my opinion. Okay, but don't let anybody tell you that, like, we don't charge that. Typically, we don't even get to 1%. I mean, our fees are $9.95. I mean, so for y'all's loan size, especially in Alaska, typically you're never even going to get there. So it takes all of that off the table. Okay, so it's an important point, especially the termite. The termite's the most argued fee in the history of the VA home loan. It's done. The veteran can pay for the termite. Period. End of story. There was a circular released earlier this year that said that. So if you have not subscribed to the VA circulars, go to va.gov and you can do that. It will send you those circulars right to your inbox. So any amendments that are made to the handbook that do not change the 26-7 as it sets in its form now are done through VA circulars. So make sure you do that. That'll keep you on the tip of the spear of all the changes that are going on. Okay, it's very important. I have a database full of them. It's crazy. Okay, and they keep a database of them on va.gov. So you can go back like 10 years of circulars. It's crazy. Okay. Probably the most argued thing, in my opinion, in the biggest roadblock is the appraisal process. We get the pushback that appraisals always come in low, that, you know, there's too many repairs, there's all kinds of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that right now, about how we can kind of combat that. And the VA appraisal process is the VA home loan is the only loan program in existence that offers two formal rebuttal processes in Tidewater and the reconsideration of value process. So at the VA Lenders Conference in May, this ought to give you some solace in the fact that this process works. Is there were valuation officers from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac at the VA Lenders Conference. They announced at the conference that they are going to start pilot programs for Fannie and Freddie to adopt VA's formal rebuttal processes. So if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. They're not trying to make it more difficult just for the sake of doing it. The process works. Okay. And so I'll just kind of briefly touch what that process looks like. Tidewater is when the appraiser cannot get to the sales price, when his appraised value. They will send a message to us as the lender saying, you know, I'm invoking Tidewater. You've got 48 hours to provide me with comps to prove your sales price. So we send that out to everybody. Hey, this is where we're at. Send us the comps. Here's a blank grid sheet. Fill this out. We can send it back to the appraiser, see what they say. Typically 48 to 72 hours later, we'll get that rebuttal. Here's what we do, and a lot of lenders do not, is on page 6 of the appraisal, we will the appraiser is required to put why they did or did not use the comps that you provided. So in the event that the house is just overpriced, it's all going to be right there. Or we can say that appraiser is crazy. This comp is good, that, all that. So it gives everybody data. Okay. And so if it doesn't work and we can't get to the sales price, but we know they've had too much to drink that day, we are going to submit for the reconsideration of value process. Okay. And reconsideration of value is when that same process goes to the VA. And someone, a staff appraisal reviewer in the construction valuation department reviews that appraisal. Their one job is to make sure that veteran becomes a homeowner. But their other job is to make sure they protect the veteran's equity. Okay, we don't want them overpaying. Because somehow the definition of a comp, people think that the definition of a comp changes by loan type. It does not. The USPAP definition of a comp is the same across all loan types. It doesn't matter. So the VA will take typically 2 to 3 days to review it. So here's a couple of stats for you. Depending on where you're at, Steve and I talked about, appraisal deliveries in the state of Alaska and how we kind of combat that and order the appraisal up front. Taking that on as a business decision before anything's done, just to get it in the appraiser's queue. But this is a national stat. That's not too bad. 7.2 days, 10.2 days for conventional. But in 2022, 91.5% of VA appraisals that were delivered made value. 91.5%. Conventional was 92%. The difference is negligible. Okay. So when people tell me that they always come in short, maybe they do 2 VA loans a year and both of them did. But as a whole, as a program, 91.5%. I think that's a pretty solid number. But when we get to the reconsideration of value process, this is a winner chicken dinner. 84% of reconsideration of values that are submitted to the VA have the appraised value increased. 84%. With an average increase of 7%. So if you have a $300,000 house, that's 21 grand. That's a lot. Now, it may not get back to the sales price, but it may get you close enough to keep that deal together. Where you're going to hold it together, people give on both sides, and everybody wins, and we get the deal done. Right? But I'm telling you right now, am I saying the process is perfect? No. What I am saying is that it's the best possible process we have in existence for any loan type. And I think Fannie and Freddie wanting to adopt that says that. Okay. The appraisal, because it came in short, does not stay with the home. It stays with the veteran's social security number for 6 months. I still hear this. I don't know why it's still out there, but it is. This rule changed the VA circular in 2011, 12 years ago almost. Okay. So it's not new. It's just, I don't know. People want to push that narrative and that's what they choose to do. But if Steve goes and wants to buy a house, the deal busts for some reason, and a veteran buyer comes 2 days later and puts another offer on the house, new appraisal, new loan number, new appraiser. And the appraiser has no access to the old appraisal because that eliminates bias. Okay. So that's a very important one to remember too. All right. And probably the most important thing about the appraisal process, this is my opinion, is minimum property MPR waivers. Okay. So one of the things that we'll hear is, oh, well, the VA appraisers are picky. Well, the VA appraisers are looking for safe, sound, sanitary. Okay. And if they call things out that are not under those categories, they can ask to be waived by the veteran. So nobody has to go through the expense of fixing it. Because the seller thinks that they have to fix it. And that's not the case. Anybody in the train, anybody can pay for the repairs. I don't care who it is. I have gone out to houses personally and repaired things. Okay. Doesn't matter. And we had one in Wichita, Kansas, and the appraiser called out the The appraiser called out the electrical panel because they thought the electrical panel was not up to code. Well, they're not code enforcement. That's not the appraiser's job. If the house, if the electrical panel works and it doesn't pose a safety hazard, and it was up to code at the time the home was built, VA doesn't care. So we took that one and about two, I think we had two others, sent the waiver request to the VA. 2 days later, they sent us a form back that said, you are good to waive these appraisals to issue the NOV. Boom, done. That's it. It's really that simple. I was in Oklahoma City on Monday, speaking to a group of agents there. There were 40 plus agents in this room. Not one of them had ever heard of an NPR waiver. You want to set yourself apart for those who know and those who don't, the subject matter expert. Blurt this out to your buyer or listing agent, see what they say. It's in chapter 12, page 52, last paragraph of that chapter in the handbook. Not that I've read it 1,000 times. Okay, invaluable resource. All right, concessions and closing costs. I'm starting to see some of that come across in certain markets, not everywhere. But one of the confusions about this is that they confuse it with FHA, thinking it's a max of 6%, or they actually get the number right at 4%, but they think there's a max of 4% in seller concessions and closing costs, and that is not true. Okay, so this is what the VA says. Seller concessions are held to a 4% limit. Seller concessions. There are certain things that fall into that sales concession bucket. Okay. You can pay the funding fee. You can pay credit cards. If the buyer has a judgment, you can pay that. And various other things up to 4% of the reasonable value of the home. But, and there's more, you can pay all of the veterans' closing costs. Prepaids, all of it. Title fees, you name it. As long as they are usual and customary, there is no limit. No limit. So think about that from a strategy perspective. Maybe you have a buyer that needs a credit card paid off to qualify. And maybe you've got a sympathetic seller that you know you can get all this out of. Let's put them in a better financial spot. Let's pay the funding fee if they're active duty, and then pay all their closing costs. That's how powerful that is. But you have to be careful in how you write that in a contract. Okay, you have to separate the two. Be very detailed about how that works. Because if you don't, I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to throw my own industry under the bus. The average lender who doesn't do a lot of these is going to lump it all together and tell you you've exceeded your limit. And then you're going to lose your mind. Okay, that's why Steve had all those gray hairs in his beard. Okay, but this is a very important thing. Okay. All right. So here's some other things that I'm going to finish up with. And this is the, out of all this, honestly, I love the benefit itself, don't be wrong, but this is how, this is my opportunity to fill the gap. This is our opportunity to fill the gap with this. There are a lot of charities out there. There are a lot of things that we can do, but find something that speaks to you. Advocate for them, not just in the home loan arena, but in something else, because they need you, right? Whether it's Service Dogs, whether it's Brain Treatment Foundation, which helps veterans with traumatic brain injuries outside the VA purviews, whether it's our charity, Valor Mission, that we created here at Benchmark to provide brain treatment scholarships to worthy veterans. And we'd love to partner with you or talk about that, how you want to do that as a brokerage or a person or whatever, because I'm telling you right now that brain health, and I deal with a lot of people with PTS issues. I was raised in a household of them. Both my grandfathers, my dad, my older brother. I didn't understand any of it until I was in my adult years, honestly, because I didn't pay attention to any of it. I was just, oh, my dad's just in a bad mood. Not understanding those things. And, I've had friends of mine that will tell you that because of their, going through the Brain Treatment Foundation program, they are alive today because they were going to kill themselves. Right? Veteran suicide is a very high rate. and we can do things to prevent it. But if there's something out there that speaks to you, man, champion that cause, get involved. The greatest way we can say thank you is to do that. And if you need help with that, I will certainly help you. If you want to meet with me to talk about strategy and these things, I will certainly do that too. Because, you know, we have a chance to make a difference because we talk to a lot of people every day. You know, we're networkers. Hopefully you are. Okay. But this is just a great way for us to give back outside of doing what we do for our living in the VA home loan. Okay. So if you're on a computer, you can scan that QR code. You will get put, that's right to the Modern Military Mastermind. This is a agnostic group. There's no sales in there. It's information, it's discussions, it's advocacy from military agents all over the country. And we host interviews in there. You know, we get discussions going, all those types of things, how we can better serve the veteran community, not just through the VA home loan, but other ways too. Okay, so scan that QR code. It'll put you in the queue for us to let you in. Love to see you in there. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, Steve, do you have the digital copies of these?
I do not.
Okay, I'm going to send Steve the digital copies of two of these things that I created. One of them is the VA Field Manual, which is for consumers. Okay, you can read it too, and I would advise you to do it, but you can do it. But you can send that to your buyers. This is an unbiased look at their benefit. It has nothing to do with my company. It has nothing to do with anything but their benefit. It's completely ad-free. That's the way I want it. Okay. This other guide is the valuation guide. It is a step-by-step process on how to get through the reconsideration of value and the Tidewater process as an agent. Because I promise you this, that you're going to come across this process, you're going to rely on the loan officer, and they're not going to know what the hell to do. That's just the way it is. Okay. So this will help you. Okay. I'm not saying it's going to make you win every time, but it'll definitely help you. Okay. So I'm going to send that to Steve so we can send that to you. I'm also going to send Steve a link to my calendar. If you would like to set up some time with me to chat about marketing strategies, things in your community, look, I want to help you as much as I can. And that's just the way I'm wired. Okay. So it'll give you 30 minutes on my calendar. We can set up time to chat and work through any issues, problems, or just things you want to talk about, you know, marketing wise or getting involved in the veteran community. Okay. So these are the states that I'm licensed in. I think Steve can probably attest to the fact that building a network is going to make you a lot of money. If you're not networking with agents in other states, and that's what the Modern Military Mastermind is, to get their referrals when they have people PCSing or veterans moving for jobs or family or whatever it is, I promise you, you are absolutely 100% missing the boat. I have agent friends of mine who close 20 to 30 deals a year on referrals. Okay. So what I can help you with is if I have a client going somewhere, I reach out to. I'm trying to build my network. And these are states that I've done business in every one of them. It's not just me getting licensed there for the fun of it because my CE takes me a freaking month. It is no fun. Okay. But as I've traveled through the business, it's very important that we do that. So these are states that I can I'm licensed in that I can help any buyers that you know, anything like that. And that is all I have. Steve, any words, any last words?
Parting shots. Yeah, let's yeah, you know, in Alaska, excuse me, I've had appraisals are always a topic of concern, and I don't know why, because I've had great luck with VA appraisals. I went the longest time ever without having any required repairs on a VA appraisal, where I would get required repairs on FHAs pretty regularly. And when I got one, I was kind of like, what is this? You know, I have to do a repair. But I have had a few Tidewaters. And so I would say this, you know, I try I try to give top-notch service to my veteran military clients because that's kind of who I think we are. So, I try to use lenders who have a track record with helping veterans and doing VA loans, who know what they're doing, who I've seen them in practice, who've proven to me, they've gained my trust. And therefore, I provide that resource to the veteran buyer. But sometimes you get lenders who are brought to you by the buyer. The buyer has a lender and wants to go with someone else, and you don't know who that person is, right? These are conversations that Jason talked about that are worth having with that loan officer early in the transaction before things start to happen, right? And one of the things that that I'll bring up from my experience locally with Tidewater is I've had several Tidewaters. Except for one, they've always worked out in everyone's favor. But I've had them come in on the weekend, and when a Tidewater is initiated, the lender is notified of Tidewater, and now the clock is ticking. You have 48 hours to submit your documentation to get it to the appraiser. I've had Tidewater come in on a weekend and no one checked their email until Tuesday. And then by the time we got notified on Tuesday, we had well blown that 48-hour window. And now we're scrambling to provide documentation to get to an appraiser who is beyond that 48-hour window. Now, he did consider our stuff and he understood the situation, but and that was a lender that we used pretty regularly. It went to the loan processor who didn't check it until Tuesday because I don't know what the deal was there. But the fact of the matter is, I would if you're doing a VA loan, I would pre-game that with your lender, regardless of who it is, whether it's someone that you habitually work with or someone you've never met, and say, hey, in the event of a Tidewater, how are you going to notify? Who are you going to notify? How are you going to notify? And what can I expect? Right. And then as an agent, knowing my market, if I get into, before I can get into a Tidewater situation, it behooves me to pull current comps, and know the market for that home. So if I have something that's pre-set up, because I pull some comps, now I don't have to burn through 48 hours trying to find all the supporting documentation. I've already done my research to the beginning phase of that transaction. And now I'm ready to pretty much hit send. I cleaned it up a little bit. I hit send. I use whatever additional factors that I think might help. So if the comps alone don't help, I may say, hey, this house has, inlet views. I had a VA appraiser who called me and said, hey, I'm struggling. Didn't call Tidewater, just called me, said, I'm struggling. Does that home have inlet views? And I said, yes, partial inlet views. Can you take a picture for me? And I said, well, I'll drive to the house right now. I drove to the house. I snapped a picture of the partial inlet views. I sent it back. Boom, house appraised at value. So whatever it takes to convince someone who's kind of on the fence that the house will come in at value. But if you can have that conversation early with the lender instead of when it occurs, which you know how it is, it's always a Friday afternoon after 5 or something to that effect, you can get it done. I've had other Tidewaters where I had one Tidewater with a appraiser failed to initiate Tidewater, and it came back. It was assigned value and it was $5,000 below purchase price. So I sent an email and said, Tidewater? And the processor sent an email to the appraiser, and he literally typed back, oh, my bad. So literally. So if you need ammunition to go to reconsideration of value afterwards, an email that says, oh, my bad, is probably the best ammunition you can possibly have, right? To go to the VA for reconsideration of value.
And let's face it, appraisers are not always right.
Yeah. And in our case, there was a veteran buyer and there was the veteran seller, and the veteran seller said, I'm cool with it. I don't even want to argue. And so we just went with the 5,000 below. But have a plan to use that process, because that Tidewater process is it's the golden ticket, man. If all the appraisal types, it is the golden ticket. It is the free timeout that you get to influence your appraiser to get the home to come in at purchase price, and no other option gives you.
You can look at it two ways. It's like, well, the appraiser isn't doing one of those kind of views, like, oh, poor me. Or you can look at it as, this is a chance for you to flex your real estate muscles.
Yeah.
To prove to them how you got to that value. And sometimes, I know it's shocking, houses are just overpriced.
Yeah,
Comps are being used or not the actual comp. There are houses that are more like the subject, closer to it, all these things. And so, I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes, or we all, but at the end of the day, data is going to wane out. It's going to win. And I think if you're providing, and in this valuation guide, I'm prompted will tell you all these things. I'll give you a copy of the grid, what to look for, all these types of information that I polled a lot of people that I trust, and information that they would want to see in it. Because as I talk to people like Steve all around the country, I'm like, does anybody ever talk to you about Tidewater or ROV, how to do it? No, nothing. So we that loan officers are supposed to be the subject matter experts in this, but we're just not. There are people out there who are not. It's just what it is. But hopefully this tool will help you kind of understand what's required of you. And as far as at least procedurally, what can help you win at the end of the day.
yeah, absolutely. And then, and jumping on what Jason just said about being the subject matter expert, so in the Alaska MillNet arena, what we're trying to do, at least we're trying to do here, is to empower you with as much knowledge so you can become the subject matter expert in your military and veteran homebuyer field. So you can be the person that eventually they're going to call because you have all the answers. So this is just the beginning. There's tons of more information that we can provide to you. What I'd really like is if you either put in the chat or the question and answer block or whatever, what additional topics you want to learn about, and then we'll add those to the future so we can get Jason back here. We can do some more stuff. Because I know, Alaska is a big place, and we have people from, the four corners of Alaska here today. It's geographically challenging. If we were in the lower 48, we might as well be in the four corners of the lower 48. It's just so different. So what challenges I face in Anchorage is not the same as what you face in your area. So let us know what additional information you'd like, and we'll get you set up for some of that.
We just did this, and if this is it, we did this. I did this in Oklahoma City while I was there. I had a high level VA mastermind where we talked, not a class, just a mastermind, just talking through things and locality things, like Steve's point, that happened in Oklahoma City, because that's not what happens in Dallas Fort Worth or El Paso or anything like that. And it's powerful because number one, it gets everybody involved, right? It's not just me talking for 45 minutes or an hour, or whatever that is. It's us talking about things, about marketing, about all kinds of different things. And so if that's something you guys ever want to do, just let me know, put it on the calendar, we'll make it happen.
All right. Yeah, it sounds like a plan, because I think that would be really, really great.
I agree. I appreciate you guys having me on, Steve. I thank you for doing this, and looking forward to doing more of them.
Thank you, sir. And we will get you back on, man, because I continue to believe you are the vending machine for all of the VA home loan answers. So
I appreciate that.
So we're going to tap into
all the work you and your wife do up there. And like I said, if there's anything I can do for anybody in the meantime, let me know.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
See you guys.
Pay attention to the MillNet workplace page for future webinar invites, because we'll be doing one real soon. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Bye.